In this world, we are introduced in the filthy life of an otaku. It was like a simple and single spark of electric current touching his foot. He got a shock, and thus his world was turned upside down. How could a stubborn otaku live in another world without having the slightest idea of how to survive? And unexpectedly, one day, a baron decided to sell a city to the hero. However, the boy believed he would have to shell out a large amount of money and still wouldn't be able to buy it. Yet the baron was determined to sell his domain because he wanted to retire, asking for just 5 cups in return. Once he had the privilege of seeing a crystal cup in the duke's palace, but it was nowhere near as clear and magnificent as the ones the hero had. So in exchange for just 5 cups, the protagonist got an entire city for himself. He immediately started thinking of making a beautiful woman his wife. Suddenly, a doubt arose about a conspiracy hidden behind all this easily acquired wealth, until one day it was enough to cause conflict and chaos in the boy's life. In another world, a bone-chilling wind along with mysterious ice as hard as iron existed in the Forbidden Mountain Range. Harsh snowstorms lasting millennia in the east of the Forbidden Mountain Range, these are dark and merciless times with the people ending up in misery. Amidst all this, rampant killing was just a game for the nobility, with the strong hunting the weak and the law of the jungle reigning supreme. In one of the main kingdoms, a vendor shouts announcing fresh and cheap oranges, calling everyone to check them out. The name of this vendor is Liu Feng, and it has been a month since he crossed over to this mysterious world. Despite this, he has made a lot of money reselling between this world and Earth. So far, he still doesn't have a place to live, so it's time to look for somewhere to stay for a while. In an establishment, the hero approaches the attendant and asks if she would sell the entire tavern to him, which leaves her surprised. Again, the protagonist reiterates his request, but the girl believes she is dealing with a madman for wanting to buy a shop in such a deserted place. Liu, in turn, thinks about wanting to find a place to stay. Besides, this is in the middle of nowhere, so in case of opening an inn there, a lot of money could be generated. So the hero makes his request once more, but the girl gets irritated, saying it won't be for sale. In that case, the boy states he can pay a lot of money, which catches the attention of 2 customers sitting at a table at the back of the establishment. One of them gets up and, seeing the boy's purchasing power, suggests that he should buy an entire city instead of a simple bar. Obviously, this proposal piques Liu Feng's curiosity, and that man confirms he didn't say it wrong, being Baron Carter along with his son Fez. The hero, however, believes that this old patron isn't bankrupt to want to sell a city and questions the reason for him being willing to trade his inheritance. In such a case, the Baron takes a deep breath to touch on this delicate matter and then explains he's getting old. Besides, according to him, the young people of this generation are not up to his expectations. Therefore, he just states he wants to sell his domain so he can go to a big city to retire and forget everything. However, the hero is suspicious and believes he's being mocked by this damned old fox. So he asks the Baron to say how much he wanted for the city. And with a happy expression, Carter states he wants 100 gold coins. Upon hearing this, the protagonist is completely disbelieving and questions if the old man is crazy. It is said that 100 gold coins are equivalent to 4 million sheep or 500,000 cattle. The exchange, however, amounts to financial comfort for 3 generations. Given this, the hero believes he is being deceived and knows he is not a novice in the commercial world. Carter, in turn, questions if the amount is too high, saying he can also grant a noble title along with the territory. But the hero still refuses, and at that moment, a blade approaches his neck, clearly threatening him. The person responsible for this is the noble's son, called Fez, who stated that the boy should feel honored that his father wants to sell his city. So the hero questions if he is being forced to buy, and Carter intervenes, asking for harmony. As if it's about the price, they can discuss it. The Baron asks how many gold coins the boy thinks is appropriate, and he then asks to leave aside this idea of 100 gold coins, saying he doesn't even have 30 of them. So the old man agrees to sell his land for 30 gold coins, closing the deal. Initially, the hero is shocked by the sale and thinks that the Baron was probably willing to sell for 30 coins from the start. To explain his logic, the old man says that when he looked at the merchant's face, he felt like giving a special discount. The merchant in turn explains that he didn't bring any money with him, but the Baron replies that the debt can be paid with some of his treasures. The statement creates confusion in Liu's mind, but without much suspense, Carter shows interest in items like crystal cups. The hero then remembers that they had been talking about this some time ago, understanding that the game was always about getting his cups. In this case, the protagonist begins to tell a story about the cups, explaining that these 5 travel tens of thousands of kilometers to obtain. His journey resulted in one of the most popular and distant stores in the West, Hua Run Yi, where in a special offer, 5 cups were sold for 10 rius. Liu, however, markets his products as if he had bought them for a high value, thus raising the market value of the cups. Faced with the product, Carter explains that once he had the privilege of seeing a crystal cup in the Duke's palace, but even so, it wasn't as clear and magnificent as this one. In this case, the hero is disbelieving that the people of this world are so easily deceived. In contrast, the 2 nobles just admire that modern invention. Liu thinks that if he had known this earlier, he would have brought more of them. But anyway, he can go back and forth between worlds whenever he wants. After witnessing the beautiful cups, the Baron asks his old friend if he has other treasures like this. Upon this, the protagonist realizes that this bastard wants to find out if he has any more valuable items, and that if he does, they will kill him to get them. The hero thinks that since the cup is considered a treasure, he will gather all the treasures and store them in his storage space, thus opening it for them to take a look. However, before that, the protagonist removes everything of value from the modern world from the box, and the Baron waits excitedly. After opening the chest, Liu demonstrates his other items and asks if Carter is interested in any of them. However, the old man is disappointed and says he doesn't want any of that for now, which the hero comments is a pity. Later, on a sunny road in the countryside, the galloping of the horse is heard. The protagonist is with the nobles in the wheat fields near the sea of Yang, and he notices that the crops are growing very well. Carter agrees despite having to watch out for horse thieves who appear in the autumn harvest to steal the grains. After a certain period of riding, they finally arrive at the city of Yang, with our hero getting very excited by what he sees in front of him. However, the noble states that this is not the city in the treaty, showing the real direction. Unlike that developed city, the first and only city of Yang is completely destroyed and in a miserable situation. In this case, the protagonist starts to cry, understanding that he should have realized from the start that it was too good to be true. Even if this money was falling from the sky, the hero knows he wouldn't be able to pay for the local expenses. As he walks through the city, the poverty is apparent, with many people having nothing to eat, seeing begging as their only way out. After walking a little further, the men go to the top of the cathedral to announce the change of leader. Gathering everyone at the site, the citizens wonder if they will be called upon, while others are afraid of the government leeches hearing them. Thus, Baron Carter announces that today he will donate the title to Li Feng, and that from today he will be the new lord of the city. One of the civilians in turn just hopes he doesn't raise the taxes anymore, but another says that Liu is surely just another leech. With the announcement made, Carter hands over the city of Yang to the hero and says he is leaving. In this case, the protagonist decides to make a speech to his new people. However, before he can even begin to say anything, the civilians tell him to get out of there, calling him a parasite and saying all their money has been sucked away. Thus, they start a protest down with the parasites and begin to throw stones at the hero, who thinks it's no surprise the Baron wanted to sell the city for so little. Later, the Baron states that the place is seriously injured and starving for a week, then questions how the civilians couldn't defeat it, even with so many people. In this case, reporting to their lord, one of them informs him that the monster was very strong and that they are not capable of taking it with them. This deeply irritates Carter, but suddenly he has an idea that will solve his problem. Now he calls for the new lord of the city and explains that he left a secret gift in the castle's dungeon, which arouses the hero's curiosity. Continuing, the Baron warns that the boy should go see it without delay because if things continue as they are, the castle could be demolished. Upon hearing this, the protagonist becomes completely desperate at the possibility of having his castle destroyed without even being able to enjoy it. So he runs towards the dungeon while wondering what on earth could be inside. Upon reaching the castle, the hero walks towards the dungeon and enters the place, encountering rats and lit torches. Inside, he wonders what kind of present the Baron left in this place. In this context, he shouts, asking if anyone is there and prepares to open a gate by leaning near the lock. However, suddenly, due to a lack of repairs, the wall starts to crack, giving the impression that the gate is falling. So the protagonist first dodges to the left and then to the right, finally bragging about having saved himself from danger. However, while he spends his time boasting about his feats, the gate ends up falling on the boy's foot. At that moment, a scream resonates throughout the place and Liu begins to cry while complaining about the infernal pain he is feeling. But suddenly something catches the hero's attention, making him completely forget about the pain. In front of him was a demi-human, and this was the first time the protagonist saw one, understanding now that there are such specimens in this world. To check the girl's condition, Liu approaches and shakes her, asking if she is still alive. He realizes that this might be the gift the Lord was talking about, so the hero thinks he cannot just do nothing and watch the girl die. Thus, the protagonist conjures a spell in his hand that opens a blue circle in space-time, bringing various food supplies into this world. He decides to look for something good to drink to improve the girl's condition, who is very weak at the moment. In that box, Liu finds some energy drinks, but among them, there was one that would be ideal. A bottle of water is taken, quickly given to the girl, who drinks it and within seconds regains her consciousness, spitting out the water. Soon after, the girl blinds the hero with the water and knees him in the face, making him semi-unconscious, while he wonders what the hell is happening. Promptly, that demi-human continues her attack, jumping from side to side and finally going for the protagonist while roaring. The hero, in turn, just screams for help, and in his mind, he remembers all the moments of his life. He definitely doesn't want to die because up until now, he hasn't managed to get beautiful and rich young woman as his wife. However, the girl who was about to finish off the boy simply faints in his arms. In this case, Liu feels relieved, understanding that he is saved from imminent danger. Later in the castle, a complaint scream from the hero was heard throughout the region. With the girl in his bed, he is impressed by her immense beauty. This mysterious beast woman is named Mina, and Liu wonders why Carter had to lock her up in the dungeon, At that moment, the girl's stomach grows with hunger, and the hero understands that considering what the Baron said earlier, the girl probably fainted from hunger. Upon opening his portal, there was still rice inside the spatial storage, so the protagonist decides to take it out and cook a porridge. However, accidentally from inside the portal, a piece of paper is carried by the wind out of the castle, and it goes down the city until it meets its destiny by falling on an elderly citizen's head. Picking up the paper in his hand, the old man wonders what it could be, but when he decides to take a look, he's impressed by the content. Then he announces his discovery to everyone, asking them to come take a look at the leaflet. Back at the castle, our hero has prepared the porridge, and at this moment, he is careful to blow on it a bit to reduce the temperature. Next, he feeds the unconscious demi-human who ingests the food, and in her mind, she thinks it smells good, wondering if the food is rice porridge. After having some of her energy restored, the girl wakes up from her faint, getting up from the bed with great disposition. Upon waking up, the girl realizes she is next to the person who came to disturb her in the dungeon in her last moment of consciousness. Thus, she jumps on the hero and aggressively questions what he made her eat. In this case, the protagonist informs her that it's just rice porridge, which makes the girl redirect her attention to the bowl held by Liu. Upon analyzing it, Mina realizes it's normal rice porridge and comments that it smells really good. However, in her mind, she tries to control herself because she believes humans can't be so kind, given that she was captured by them. Despite any moral convictions, the demi-human's stomach growls louder. In this case, she orders the hero to eat a bite of the rice porridge, which he promptly does. Thus, the girl asks to eat another bite, this time in a much bigger one, and Liu understands, saying he will eat until there's nothing left. In his mind, the protagonist knows that if the girl wanted to hurt him, she should have had the opportunity a few moments ago, so there's nothing wrong with the porridge. This situation repeated several times until finally, Mina gave in and ended up eating a portion equivalent to a month's worth of rice for a normal person. With her meal finished, Mina wondered what in the world happened and now began to admire humans. However, maintaining her angry pose, she orders Liu to let her go at once or she will kill him. Initially, the protagonist is disappointed that the girl ate all his rice and already wants to leave, but he explains that no one will stop her from going, pointing to the door. In this case, the girl prepares to leave, and before anything else, the hero asks her to be careful on her journey, making sure not to be captured by Carter or any other idiot like him. Upon hearing this, the girl thinks the boy seems different from the other nobles. With that farewell sign, Mina becomes a little embarrassed, showing the beginning of some repressed feeling. But at this moment, she hears something outside that scares her, and thus she rushes at the hero, calling him a scoundrel and claiming there's an ambush outside. In response to the girl, the hero says he is the only one in the entire castle, there's no ambush, and he asks her to stop trying to kill him. At this moment, a revolt happens outside the castle with civilians shouting at the leeches and demanding they open the gates. In this case, the girl claims she was right about her suspicions, but the protagonist says he doesn't know what's happening. Quickly, the population manages to enter the castle, getting closer and closer to the Lord's Hall. The cry of revolt was heard throughout the place, calling for strength and ordering the death of the leeches. Upon reaching the Baron's quarters, Sinki's group tries to break down the door with a log. Faced with this, the hero explains to the girl that these are not his people, advising her to hide quickly. Initially, Mina is suspicious, but Liu says that if he wanted to hurt her, she would already be dead, which makes the girl take his words a bit more seriously. Finally, the group of rebels manages to break down the door, and their leader points to the Lord of the Land. He orders his colleagues not to let him escape, and then they all gather around the protagonist with their weapons drawn. Without delay, one of the civilians asks what the Sea Lord is doing and explains that they have already been stripped of everything, having nothing left. In this case, Bafa questions why the Baron is trying to collect even more taxes. In response, the protagonist comments that he did not order an additional tax collection. In such a scenario, the elder shows the scroll he received in his face earlier. Upon seeing this, the hero thinks it's not his since he sold a batch of straw paper to the Baron as sheepskin scrolls a month and a half ago. In this case, Liu questions if this is a sheepskin scroll and states that if someone wants to know where it came from, it probably came from the castle. Thus, the civilians understand that their expectations were correct, and one of them comments that his brother died of hunger not long ago due to the abuse of taxes. At this moment, the hero is called the Incarnate Demon, and he, in turn, only thinks that he sold a bunch of straw paper, not understanding the real reason for the revolt. In a final juncture, if the Baron doesn't let the civilians live in peace, they decide not to let him live either. Thus, the Baron's death is ordered, and one of them promptly rushes towards the hero with his cutting weapon, along with a strong murderous intent. Before the attack is completed, a stone is thrown towards the boy's dagger, which ends up disarming him. Unexpectedly, Mina interferes in the conflict and tells the boy to hold his hands while he questions her identity. According to the law, if a civilian kills a noble, all those who rebel and their families will be sentenced to the gallows. In light of the information presented, one of the civilians understands that the girl is right, and another says he doesn't care about his own death, but doesn't want harm to come to his wife and daughters. In this case, the hero simply recalls that he told the girl to hide, not understanding why she is there now. Promptly, Mina asks if the lord of the land is alright, and he responds affirmatively, while the dagger is stuck in his head, which makes the girl laugh. At this moment, Bafo gets irritated and comments that the Baron is increasing taxes by 50%, which in reality is the same as a death sentence. From this, the protagonist decides to take a look at the paper, and upon seeing it, things were worse than he imagined. It was written with Carter's signature that to celebrate the beloved horse's birthday of the city lord, taxes would be increased by 50%. Realizing he was made a scapegoat, Liu informs them that the notification was issued by the previous lord. In this case, this starts to cause confusion among the civilians, but the youngest of them remains firm because he believes they are all part of the same group. However, as the current lord of the city and in the name of such, the hero announces here and now that all the citizens of Aksai Yang will never have their taxes increased again. Along with the surprise, this causes distrust among the population due to the noble's word, but they saw him tear up the notification, which means they will have food. Gradually, the rebels begin to calm down, and the protagonist starts a speech saying that only by keeping his citizens happy can the lord of the land be happy. In this case, he states that he will guide everyone in obtaining wealth and strive for an era of peace and prosperity. However, for this, they will need to roll up their sleeves and get to work on some heavy labor. Although he didn't really understand this, the civilians found it incredible. And with this being indeed the case, Bafu decides to thank him for all the great kindness and grace. Liu, in turn, reiterates that it is true and prides himself on never going back on his word. In this case, everyone decides to leave in hope that the city lord told the truth because it would really be good for them if he did. In another scenario, Fez tells his father that he heard the city of Paksai Yang has already become a complete mess with a group of villagers invading the lord's mansion. Carter, in turn, says that at first he was very worried but didn't expect the hero to be incapable of keeping a bunch of peasants under control. In this case, the Baron's son is happy and praises his father because this shows that the city of Paksai Yang will soon return to their hands. However, suddenly bad news arrives for the lord, being told that something unexpected happened. With the bad news being announced, Fez asks the servant what made him so nervous. In this case, the man says that Liu Feng has already persuaded the population and also released the beast woman. Hearing this, the Baron's son becomes deeply irritated, saying he will kill that bastard. However, the boy's father asks him to stay calm, and Fez retorts, saying he spent a lot of money to buy the demi-human. Carter, in turn, comments that there are no surprises since the boy is now the lord of the city. But he assures that in a short time, Baron Omar will naturally straighten him out, which impresses Fez with his father's genius. Shortly afterward, in his quarters, the protagonist recalls that it almost scared him to death but finally managed to calm the situation. Upon this, he believes he also needs to calm down a bit more. He starts to enjoy a nap, and Minna decides to leave now, which makes the boy wake up immediately. To change the girl's decision, he asks her to wait because her wounds are not yet fully healed. Furthermore, he says that if Minna leaves like this, her capture will be as easy as taking candy from a baby. Upon hearing this, the girl shows her claws and says she will just kill anyone in her way. The hero explains that if she wants, she can stay there for a while until she recovers, and in any case, he will be incapable of doing any harm to her. Mina, in turn, remains hesitant, believing that humans are not good and therefore cannot be kind in this way. In this case, the protagonist says it's very boring being the only one in the entire castle and suggests that if she stays and keeps him company, they can talk. Additionally, the hero asks if the girl is afraid of being killed, to which she responds she is not, and even if she were, the protagonist doesn't have enough strength. Reaching agreement, Mina decides to stay and first heads to the hot springs to take a bath, bidding farewell for now. Upon entering the water, she finds it a very peaceful environment and thinks it's been a long time since she had such a good bath. However, suddenly she starts feeling pain in her left shoulder, which reminds her that humans are abominable. In her past, when she was imprisoned, soldiers came to feed her during times of hunger, with one of them giving her a piece of bread. However, upon eating that bread, it turned out to be a trap to make her fall asleep, making it easier to sell her as a slave to evil nobles. Remembering this, Mina thinks that all humans are despicable and not worth the clothes they wear, being nothing but liars. In contrast to her anger, Nu was spying on her from outside the hall. He couldn't contain his curiosity about the differences between humans and demi-humans, but tried to convince himself that it was scientific and not perverted. With his eyes peeking at the girl through the door crack, the image of that beautiful demi-human completely fascinates our hero. At this moment, the protagonist has a nosebleed from excitement, making a noise that the girl hears. Upon this, she asks who is there, and the hero responds that he is there to give her something to wash with. Quickly, a soap bar is thrown through the door into the girl's hands, and upon taking the object, a demi-human realizes it smells good, having the same scent as humans. Later in his quarters, the hero picks up some paperwork and pretends to be focused on his work. Shortly after, Mina appears in the room after her bath, but she shyly comments that these clothes don't fit her properly. With the woman in front of him, the boy thinks excitedly that a freshly bathed cat woman is something he would never have been able to see in the other world. And before the boy's perverted gaze, the girl understands his intentions, thus questioning what he is looking at. In this case, the hero tries to change the subject, informing her that he has prepared rice porridge especially for the guest. This clearly catches the girl's attention and thanks him for the porridge, but still says she is cautious in case something is being plotted against her. Upon taking the bowl, she states that humans are always plotting something, but the hero assures her that he is different from the rest. Thus, the demi-human agrees that the boy is different, given that he is a human who spies on others in the bath. At this moment, the protagonist realizes he has been caught and thinks that if people find out, he will no longer be able to live there. The girl, however, seems more interested in the porridge than the situation itself, and in consideration of the human, she advises him to pack his bags soon. It is said that in a few days, the hero will no longer want to be the lord of the city because of what will happen soon. The horse thieves are a group of bandits who will appear in 20 days with the arrival of the autumn harvest. They will loot the harvest and might end up killing the city lord, thus taking the castle and becoming the new masters of the place. In this way, the girl explains that the hero doesn't have a single soldier and isn't fleeing, which seems like he's waiting to die. Upon hearing this, the boy understands that this is the reason why Baron Carter sold the city and the title so easily, having dug the next leader's grave. Mina, in turn, explains that this is so bad that she wants to go south, but otherwise, she might stay there and watch all the humans kill each other. With the idea of death being questioned, the protagonist asks if the girl is afraid of the bandits. But she states that not even the wrath of the goddess of ice and snow can scare her, which makes Liu confused as he has never heard of this sacred being. To explain, the girl comments that it is because of her that the strong snowstorm lasted 5 years. 5 years ago, the goddess of ice and snow suddenly got angry and blew a freezing wind, and the snow falling from the sky went farther than the eyes could see, turning the whole world into a land of snow and ice. They had no choice but to go south, and to this day, some human countries are surrounded by snow. After explaining the story, Mina questions how the Lord of the Land didn't know this, so the hero, somewhat uncomfortable, explains that he was traveling east during that time. This causes some suspicion, but the girl doesn't care much and reiterates the request to flee if the protagonist doesn't want to die. However, Liu recalls that there is still half a month until the autumn harvest and states that there is no need to worry. This is because he proudly says he has his own way. In a certain forest, a tiger runs after a boy named Miu Wu, but does not seem very worried about the situation despite the animal's ferocity. With a confident look, the boy tells the tiger to chase him because he is confident in his abilities. So the animal chases the boy with all its strength, and they approach a barricade. At this barricade, the fugitive easily climbs it, and from the top, he just mocks the tiger for not being able to follow him. After another failed attack by the animal, the boy says he no longer wants to play with the kitty. From the top of a mountain, an adult man holding a trident shouts to all of his colleagues that it is now showtime. Promptly, Niu Dao, along with Niu Niu San, and Niu Sai, appear ready to hunt the animal with their weapons and gear. The tiger realizes it is in trouble, but does not have enough time to react, eventually being captured and killed. With the hunt over and the boy's city is seen from above, and now that the present is ready, they decide to head to their destination. In the city of Caxtai Yang, Uncle Niu's family is reviewed by the citizens, and they comment that since they refused Carter's recruitment, they'd never return to the city. The civilians do not understand why this family is entering the city, but Bafu understands that from the direction they are probably going to visit Liu Feng. The rebellious boy shouts that it is impossible because even if the young noble could invite the king, he could not invite the entire Niu family. In this case, a doubt arises, but it is common knowledge that it is impossible for Uncle Miu to help a blood-sucking monster. In the carriage heading to the castle, a girl comments that Liu seems to be a good boy, becoming a noble and even sending a letter to invite them. Continuing, she comments that they did not save the wrong person, and another girl is very happy to see Liu again, drowning in love for him. Later in the castle, the hero is extremely happy with the visit of his uncles Miu and Mei. Then they throw the tiger to the ground, informing him that it is a present for becoming the governor of the city. Upon seeing it, the boy's eyes shine, thinking he can make a high-quality fur coat, and he asks if the animal weighs around 250 kilos. To maintain humility, the hero says that just their visit was enough, which Mina believes to be hypocrisy. Changing the subject, the girl from before asks Nicole if she doesn't want to see Liu Feng and advises her to quickly say hello to him. After the girl pushes Nicole, she ends up tripping over the animal's body and finally falls into the arms of our hero. However, her breasts press against the protagonist's chest, which excites him, and he comments that she has grown a lot since the last time he saw her. After saying this, the hero regrets it in his mind, but fortunately, the girl naively thinks the boy is referring to her height. In this situation, Aunt May finds the unfolding funny, and Miu, somewhat embarrassed, asks to discuss business now. So he asks all the family members to take a vow of loyalty. However, the protagonist notices that his uncle was left out of the list, so he says that he wants him to be a castle's chief administrator. Upon hearing this, the man thanks the boy for his kindness with regret, but informs him that his leg is broken, so he basically cannot contribute to the kingdom. In this case, for the snap of his fingers, Liu asks his uncle not to worry because he can find a way to make him a normal person, which shocks everyone present. Keeping his promise after making some modifications to his uncle's leg, he asked Mew to stand up and try to walk, creating anticipation in everyone. Without wasting time, the man held onto his trident apprehensively but unexpectedly managed to stand with a prosthetic leg. To test the prototype, Mew walked a few steps inside the castle, which made his family emotional about the scene. Inevitably, the man now claims he can walk. Upon hearing this, Aunt May cries because it is truly wonderful, and Nickel informs her mother that her makeup is coming off. With this, a joyful atmosphere is created among everyone, happiness that surrounds the place and takes over everything. Interfering in the conversation, Liu says that his uncle should practice more often, and that soon there will be no difference for him compared to normal people. Understanding everything the boy did for them, May wipes her tears, and the two look at each other with determination. Thus, the whole family starts walking towards the protagonist, which makes Liu confused about what they are doing. Without further ado, all the male members of the family present themselves to the young master Li Feng, and they pledge to be the sharp sword that will pierce all the enemies of their new master. At first, the protagonist is surprised but accepts and thanks his uncle for trusting him, leaving him in charge of governing the castle from now on. Additionally, the hero asks him to teach him how to manage the city. Shortly after, a letter from Baron Omar was arriving in the kingdom of Xi Yang. In this case, the Baron and his plan against the Western Sun City were starting now. Elsewhere in a certain establishment, a man was shouting indignantly at what he was seeing. It was a trade with a merchant. The man is angry that half a kilo of grains is worth 3 copper coins and recalls that the day before only 2 were needed. In such a case, the merchant comments that yesterday was yesterday and today is today, clearly trying to take advantage of the boy. So without wasting time, he asks if the boy is going to buy or just keep chatting. Initially, the boy was just irritated because it seemed he had no choice, and the merchant happily thought that the price increase was Baron Omar's order. At that moment, however, a noise is heard throughout the kingdom, the community gathering upon hearing the news that the Castellan Palace is distributing food for free. Upon hearing this, the boy finally rebels against the price, saying he will not buy anything anymore. The merchant, however, just stands paralyzed, not understanding the reason for food being distributed for free. With the ringing of a bell, Uncle Mew informs everyone that the palace is recruiting secretaries and hunters, as well as strong men. They will have better conditions, with the secretaries earning 120 copper coins, followed by the hunters and strong men who will earn 80 monthly. With such a good salary disclosed, the civilians begin to believe it is a lie because a noble could not be so generous. It is said that this salary is twice as much as the previous lord offered, making it clear that it is a deception. At this moment, Li Feng appears in the middle of the crowd, saying that he will keep his promise, because among his convictions, the strongest one is that he never breaks his promises. With the emperor's presence, the population is impressed by the resplendence demonstrated in his arrival. At this moment, the girls fall in love while admiring the hero's beauty, and everyone wonders what kind of clothes these are because they had never seen anything like them before. Moreover, even the demi-human maid is wearing quite elegant clothes in the eyes of the civilians. With this said, the hero goes towards his uncle to discuss the next issues. Thus, he informs Mew that he will be taking over from there, which the man understands. Taking the lead of the speech, the protagonist states that everything written in the announcement is true, but that candidates will need to pass a test. As long as everyone passes the test, not only will they be able to obtain a monthly salary, but they will also be able to eat all that food that smells delicious. Furthermore, it is said that they can eat as much as they want and whenever they prefer. With this divine smell being exhaled, Hanators realize it is roast boar, and with the food ready in a bowl, that fragrant smell enchants everyone. So they decide to try it because they have nothing to lose, and the rebellious boy from before, despite being starving, still comments that it could be a trap. With everything organized, the protagonist sits at a table with his subordinates and asks who will be the first to see. In this case, without thinking much about it, Bafu raises his staff, saying he wants to apply. He wants to try for the secretary position, and thus shows the Lord some things he wrote. That letter was about the Lord's dreams, and upon finishing reading it, the hero realized that he writes well, above all, cares about people. In light of this, the hero proved Bafu as the new secretary of the city of Xi Yang, and then Nickel approached to serve him with a noodle soup and roast pork that was stunningly beautiful. With that wonderful food in front of him, the Lord could not resist and quickly grabbed the plate to taste it. However, upon eating a bit, his expression changed completely because it was very different from what he had thought. Upon seeing this, the population was shocked, and some of them considered the possibility that there was poison in the bowl. And so the boy believed it was a trap and hurried to the elder's rescue, his weapon drawn. However, contrary to the ignorant expectation, the old man's expression is due to the delicious taste in the food, causing the boy to stop in the middle of his attack. Bafu cries and says he has never eaten such delicious food before, feeling as if he has lived wrongly all this time, and at this moment he is reprimanded by the boy. If it really is that delicious, the other civilians decide to try it too, those who are literate aim for the secretary position and the rest for the soldier position. At the enlistment field, Liu explains that if a person can walk on the balance beam, jump over the wooden obstacle, and crawl through the barbed wire area, in addition to climbing the high wall, then the person will pass the test. In this case, the rebellious boy realizes that everyone is going and wonders why he shouldn't try. With a privileged view of the entire circuit from above, the hero believes everything is going well, not expecting everyone to be so excited as they are. Therefore, the protagonist pats Nickel's head, saying that it's all thanks to her dedication and skill. Nickel, in turn, humbly replies that her master taught her well. Then the boy approaches Mina to thank her as well and to pat her. However, the demi-human is not comfortable being touched by Li Fen's hands, so she leaves while the hero thinks he almost managed to pat her ears. Anyway, Nickel wonders who that girl is to her big brother Liu, understanding that she seems a bit dangerous, but that her companion doesn't seem to care much. In the enlistment field, everyone is exhausted, but they keep going, thinking about the noodle soup and roast pork. At this moment, amidst the tests, a person falls and is quickly removed from the test. Thus, another has their clothing caught on the barbed wire and is also removed. This way, now in the climbing competition, one of the men falls, being eliminated from the contest. From afar, Niu doesn't understand where his master got these things from, as even he, who has been training since he was young, finds it difficult to pass. In this case, it was extremely difficult for normal people who gradually left the test in pain and exhausted. In his mind, Niu believes that if this continues, it won't be able to recruit any soldiers. Later in his room, the hero is reading the legendary Emperor Sun Tzu's book, The Art of War, and can't believe so few people passed the test. Then Nickel suddenly appears with his afternoon tea along with chocolate cake and coffee, which the hero thanks her for wholeheartedly. Upon eating the cake, he finds it soft and tasty, as well as sweet and light, so the hero praises Nickel for her incredible culinary skills. And she is extremely happy that her master liked her preparations. Unexpectedly, at this moment, another person appears in the room. It is the demi-human who cleverly steals a piece of cake and eats it. Nickel says she is happy that she liked it, but thinks that she cooked all morning just for Liu to eat, and now Mina has eaten all of it. Cutting off this pleasant atmosphere, bad news arrives in the young master's room. It is said that people are preparing to leave the city of Haksayang in search of food, which leaves our hero perplexed. He places the coffee on the table and asks his secretary what is happening. Bafu in turn responds that the people who didn't pass the test cannot get the food, and moreover, those merchants are selling food 30% more expensive. It is said that right now the civilians are almost dying from lack of food. In this case, Niu believes they should lower the criteria for recruitment, and the girl mocks that considering it's just a simple course, many still didn't make it. She laughs, saying that humans are really weak, which irritates Niu greatly. Upon hearing this, the protagonist intervenes and informs them that the criteria will not be lowered, which surprises the men. However, the issue of merchants taking advantage of people's urgent needs at a time like this will be resolved. Without delay, Liu heads to the merchant's establishment, and the merchant greets the lord of the city, asking what brings him there. So our hero asks if it was the man in front of him who raised the food prices by 30%. Irritated, he prepares to punch the face of the thief who monopolized the market and put everyone in a difficult situation. However, when he kicks the damn fat guy, he receives no apparent damage, either due to the hero's weakness or the merchant's resistance. With this, the merchant comments that he provides the food and people buy it, and then if they complain that it's too expensive, they can just not buy it. Thus, he asks if there is a problem, and Liu closes his face, grabbing Niu's sword from its sheath and advancing toward the merchant. With that sword pointed at his neck, the hero intimidates the man, asking how he dares to rob his people. However, the man asks the city lord to calm down, and knowing his rights, he states that according to the law, merchants can set prices as they wish. So he questions if the protagonist is thinking of ignoring the law, and upon consulting his secretary, the matter is confirmed. The merchant then starts to victimize himself, saying that they are honest food merchants who conduct their small businesses according to the law. And in his mind, he knows he has Lord Omar as an ally, not needing any alliances with the city lord. Liu, in turn, is outraged that this merchant is causing so much trouble and understands that he will not be able to deal with this today. So proceeding with the information that the price will not be lowered, the boy states that when the time comes, the man had better not regret it. In response to that threat, the merchant just laughs, saying that when they set a price, they naturally do not regret it. Then Liu leaves with his people and again warns the merchant that soon he will get what he deserves. In the city, people no longer know what to do because the price of raw wheat has risen again and refined wheat even more. In the end, if things continue this way, they will all die before the autumn wheat harvest. The merchants in the region always raise prices at this time of year to make as much profit as possible. Amidst all that chaos, Bafu posted an announcement on the city's news board. The announcement said that the city would soon be renovated, so a campaign would be launched to rebuild houses, requiring artisans, masons, and dock workers. In this case, one of the citizens asks if what is written is true, if they really need so many workers. In response to the question, the elder coughs and assures everyone that it is true, and that if anyone is interested in a job, they can start immediately. Thus, the population believes in Bafu and decides to apply en masse. Later at the site, complicated projects were handed to the population who could barely understand them. But as time went by, they naturally adapted. Little by little, the natives help each other in the city's renovation, and deservedly, it was time to line up to get their food. This made everyone extremely happy because they would finally have real food, unlike in the past. In contrast to this, the merchants hold a meeting, and one of them comments that no one has bought food in recent days. Then another wishes them all dead. Determined to end this nonsense, the city's main merchant tells everyone to shut up and says they are overestimating the boy. Another merchant retorts, informing that the Lord is giving away food for free. In this case, it won't be able to sell their grains. However, the plumpest among them raises his hand, saying that the Sea Lord's food can last at most 3 more days. In this case, the man who was previously praising Leo now thinks that he is a complete fool for digging his own grave like this. And the red-haired merchant continues, saying that if the Lord thinks of something, it doesn't matter because when the time comes, it will all have a mountain of money. Thus, the atmosphere in the place is relieved, and all that anguish and worry are replaced by a wicked hope. Back in the protagonist's office, he is quite busy with paperwork. Suddenly, Nicole approaches, catching the hero's attention, who makes some time for her. In this case, the girl thinks it's good that the Lord is making people rebuild their houses and giving the wheat to eat. However, it is said that the food supplies and their storage may not last much longer. Back at the worksite, everyone is happy to receive a kilo of wheat the previous day, but upon arriving in line as usual, much less food is being offered today. One of the civilians reports to the secretary that the grain is gone, and he explains that he has already reported it to the city owner, who is currently trying to solve the problem. From the top of the castle, Liu looks out over the horizon and Nicole catches his attention. It is a fact that now the food stores are almost empty, and they may not be able to deliver soon, but the boy assures her that he will find a way. Back at the worksite, the people start to revolt for not having received food and complain about the hunger they are suffering. Inevitably, the day comes for the merchants to put their plan into action, executing their premeditated show. The plump merchant asks with hidden intentions if the city lord does not want to fulfill this contract. He now asks to both food to hurry and send more food, questioning why they stopped. Pointing to the population, everyone is hungry and holding their bowls, waiting to receive some food. Obviously, the elder looks embarrassed because he cannot say that the food is running out. Thus, the merchant loudly deduces that there is no more food left, which incites the beginning of a revolt among the hungry and helpless population. But Fu, in turn, asks everyone to calm down and wait just a bit longer, saying the food will arrive soon. Again instigating the fight, the chubby one asks if Bufu is out of grains and if the city lord is facing some difficulty. One of the merchants explains that if the lord needs help, he can just buy from them, and another comments that it should be done soon as it's not right to send people away without paying. With these issues being raised, especially the hunger of children and the elderly, the population thinks among themselves and joins the revolt. In fury, they ask when the food will arrive as it is already getting dark and complain that they will starve if they have to wait any longer. One of them complains that a whole day of work did not yield a single grain, making it clear to him that they were deceived by the leeches. All this ingratitude affects Bufu's feelings and points his cane at the man, asking if he intends to become a rebel. Understanding that the old man is challenging them, the population gathers to lynch the elder. They almost seriously hurt the old man, but fortunately, the civilians stop the revolt when they hear a thunderous shout saying, "Enough." This shout reveals the presence of the protagonist, who asks what the hell they are doing. Before everyone, the city lord is finally there to resolve the issues personally. He moves with Mina to the center of the commotion while being looked up and down by the merchant. Liu states that those who want to cause trouble again will no longer need to come to work the next day. The information that they might lose the chance to get food affects the people's psychology, and in contrast, Bilfu recovers from that cowardice. Then the merchant comments that the lord arrived just in time and asks when they should start delivering the grains because everyone is waiting for dinner. In this case, the protagonist understands and states that the grains will be distributed after waiting a little longer, which again starts to anger the population. The merchant dramatically cries while asking the lord to look at his people who, after a hard day's work, are waiting with their children for food. He adds that even if he does not consider them adults, he should not forget the children. Therefore, today, for the sake of the children, the man says he is willing to risk everything. So he orders someone to go to the warehouse to get the grains to distribute. Given his populist speech, the civilians are unfortunately swayed. Consequently, Liu understands that this is exactly what the merchant wanted because if he goes to get the grains, he will charge an absurdly high price. Upon seeing this, the hero asks if the merchant honestly believes that people can buy the food, and he replies that it is not the time to think about money. He adds quietly that his food is a bit expensive, being 21 copper coins per kilo, but is not easy to undertake a long journey just to stock and supply. Finally, the man returns to his dramatic act, questioning if money is a bigger problem for the lord than the people's hunger. With this, the workers buy into his speech and complain that they work all day but do not have a single grain to feed their families. Mina, in turn, is disillusioned, believing there is nothing to be done about it. With nightfall approaching, the question remains whether the lord will distribute the grains or not. Naturally, a tense atmosphere forms around the hero as, at this moment, everyone is against him, and the merchant believes it is better for everyone to leave. since their lord will not buy any grain as he does not care about how much they struggle for him, much less about their families' lives. This speech was the tipping point for the population's rebellion, and they now decide to take the food with their own hands, even if they have to invade the castle. With the plan made, everyone heads to the lord's mansion to feed themselves from the reserves. Faced with this perilous situation, the protagonist panics and the plump merchant is eager to show the true face of these civilians to this foolish governor. Thus, all three begin to laugh, satisfied that their plan is working. However, suddenly, a man points to the horizon. Finally, the grains are seen arriving with Uncle Liu's group on horseback with a massive stockpile in a cart. While this relieves our hero, it also causes the merchant to despair as he will no longer profit. In good spirits, Liu kneels, saying they were able to complete the task ordered, and the protagonist asks his uncle to rise. The man comments that thanks to the young master's foresight, they were able to leave the city days earlier and thus buy the grains. Moreover, the quantity requested was fully obtained, so Liu asks Bofu to spread his orders. Raising his hand like a true leader, the orders are to proceed with the grain distribution. Faced with this, all the civilians gather to lift the hero in a celebration of long life to the Lord. The merchants, however, do not know what to do now and must wait to see what happens next. Later, in his quarters, the protagonist rests in a deep sleep like a baby. However, suddenly someone opens his bedroom door and slowly approaches the hero's face. It is Nicole, who is extremely mesmerized by the beauty of her love. From the little girl's perspective, the Lord is the most handsome prince in the world. Logically, she feels embarrassed, but looking to the side and seeing no one, she believes she won't be discovered if she gives a hidden kiss. However, just as the girl is about to kiss him, Min appears, cutting off the mood. Extremely startled, Nicole says she isn't doing anything but asks why the girl is walking around so silently. Upon this, Mina states that she is a human cat warrior and such behavior is natural for her species. Naturally, due to the noise, our hero wakes up and asks what is happening. Nicole then steps forward to explain while stuttering, says she came to bring the boys breakfast. Knowing this wasn't her true intention, she reiterates it now with a tray of food in hand. In this case, Liu accepts and takes the glass of milk she prepared for him, but the demi-human again interrupts by taking one of the buns. Mina also informs that the proposed reform in the training field is ready, making the hero happy to have good news early in the morning. Excited, Liu says the girl is truly his mascot. However, she doesn't pay much attention and just tells the protagonist to hurry because everyone is waiting. Faced with this, Mikkel thinks the girl has a horrible attitude and wonders why her beloved protects her so much. Finally, Liu informs his companion that when he returns for lunch, he will want to eat fried pork ribs, which the girl hears and accepts without question. At the training field in the city of Aksai-yang, everyone is gathered. The civilians converse among themselves, asking if the food is really free, and one of them affirms that the Lord is true to his word. From the top of the building, Liu informs that these people were strictly selected within the requirements. Thus, our hero calls for his future soldiers and explains why they didn't pass the last military selection exam. It was because they didn't receive the proper training in food. In this case, he is there to offer everything for free, and the training will be provided by Knight Yuben. This way, everyone will have a second chance next month. If they succeed in the exam at that time, they will not only get free food, but they will also never have to pay taxes for the rest of their lives. Food for life and tax exemption for the family was something that completely seduced the population. In such a case, a rally in favor of the Lord began, with everyone wishing for his eternal life. Without further ado, it is time to start the training. New, dressed in military attire, blows a whistle to start the speech that introduces the instructors for the recruits who will be responsible for them. After that, everyone is ordered to divide into groups, with some going to the right and others to the left. With everything organized, the future soldiers are divided into groups by their instructors, and the training finally begins. Unfortunately, the result was not as expected, with many of them performing well below average. Liu, in turn, to console Niu, comments that the knight will have a long task ahead of him. In this case, he becomes furious and shouts that the cursed recruits who do not finish the day's training will not be allowed to have dinner. Facing this, the demi-human finds the whole situation quite funny and remembers that when she trained with Anri and the others, it was also fun. This brings a nostalgic feeling to Mina, who looks at the sky and wonders how they are doing now. Later, in a forest scene, birds fly away because of a noise that scares them. Inside a cave, a boy named Fuji is upset because his second sister Minute is not back yet and may have been captured by humans. In this case, the boy asks his other sister to do something about it, but she does not seem very enthusiastic. She believes her sister should have been more careful, and this girl named Ari thinks that if they go to save her, they will also be caught. The group's priority now is to go south and find more food. Otherwise, everyone in the cave will soon starve. This seems like the right thing to do given the miserable situation the family is in at the moment. However, Fuji is determined not to go south without his sister, and at this moment he has the support of other family members who also do not want to leave her behind. With some by his side, the boy decides to leave the group that will kill the humans and bring his second sister back. However, Ari shouts for them to stop and come back immediately, knowing that the boy's reckless decision could further compromise the group's integrity. Since her brothers are not listening to her commands, Ari rushes out to bring them back with her own hands. Demonstrating her excellent acrobatic skills, the girl supports herself on the boys' heads while spinning in the air. She lands, but unfortunately, it goes wrong, causing her to fall and lose all the moral authority she had gained. In this case, the boys think their sister should not try to use these cool moves if she is not good at them. Extremely embarrassed, the girl changes the subject and says there is no place to bring Mina because they don't even know where she is. Faced with this, Fuji asks what they should do, so the girl explains that first they must go to neighboring cities to look for clues. At the same time, she thinks Mina is an idiot because by now, she should be a shadow warrior. After some time, Fuji approaches the village of Xi Yang, thinking that his sister is strange because she didn't want to save Mina, but already had turbans ready for infiltration. However, upon entering the city, the boy is confused about why everyone is destroying their houses. But at that moment, a smell better than anything he had ever smelled before catches his attention more than any random curiosity. Looking ahead, the boy sees that the smell comes from a huge cauldron of food, making him drool. In this case, Fuji comments that it smells really good and his stomach growls very loudly. Seeing this, the cook asks if the boy is hungry and invites him to eat. She also explains that if he works, he can receive wheat at the end of the day. The last sentence completely seduced the boy, and thinking of his family, who are currently starving, he decides to help. With more enthusiasm than any other local worker, the boy begins to help with everything he can extremely efficiently. At dusk, after waiting in line, Fuji finally gets the promised amount of wheat and is very happy that he finally has something to eat. However, his exhaustion along with the decision to eat only at the end of the day causes the boy to collapse to the ground in fatigue after a long shiver. Before completely passing out, the boy thinks about humans, and one of them comes to his rescue as his eyes close. Later, the boy wakes up startled and finishes his sentence, saying that humans are dangerous. He looks around and finds nothing, but when he looks up, he realizes he is without his turban, which means the citizens discovered his identity. At this moment, the girl from before appears, asking if the boy is awake. She explains that he fainted from hunger because he ate too little. Realizing that the girl from before is in front of him, Fuji gets up, startled, and asks what she is planning. The girl introduces herself as Lanner, but due to his preconceptions, the boy remains defensive, asking her not to come closer because he is a demi-human. Then he threatens the woman, saying that if she makes him angry, he might end her life. Despite all of his efforts to seem threatening, Lanner just laughs in the boy's face. She asks if all demi-humans are as playful as he is. In this case, Fuji asks if the woman is not afraid of him. Lanner responds that she is not, since there is a Catwoman who collaborates with Lord Li Feng, who does not seem scary at all. In this context, Fuji realizes that this Catwoman might be his second sister. Very excited, the boy asks what the woman who accompanies the Lord looks like. He is told that she has long violet hair and big, beautiful round eyes. Thus, Fuji is now certain that this is his sister and decides to return home to tell everyone. However, without realizing it, he touches the girl's hand by accident but notices that she is not afraid of him. Without further ado, the boy grabs the wheat grains along with his turban and dashes towards his home. Lanner, however, notices that the boy could have jumped out the window, but for some mysterious reason decided to go through the wall. Back in the cave, Ari is strictly nervous about her brother's decision to disguise himself as a human to visit the villages. She scolds her brother heavily, explaining the immense danger Fuji was in. However, amidst all these bad things, the boy reveals that despite everything, he discovered where his sister is. Ari then decides to change the focus of the discussion, now shaking Fuji while asking where she is. Dizzy from being shaken so much, the boy informs her with his last bit of strength that Mina resides in the city of Paxai Yan. He also explains that she was captured by the city lord Li Feng. Faced with this, Ari understands her current mission and prepares to go save her relative. As night falls, things are calm and peaceful in our hero's village. At this moment, Ari approaches, jumping over the rooftops of houses with her brother. She remains hopeful that everything will go well, praying that Mina is safe and sound. Upon reaching the castle entrance, Ari realizes it is as expected because there are guards patrolling. In this case, she asks her brother to follow the plan and they quickly disappear, with one of them appearing behind a citizen who is relieving himself. After neutralizing this person, each family member of the demi-humans is responsible for taking down one or more guards. With this, they are almost done with their plan. However, the girl is disappointed and states that her brother needs more training as he is too slow. Without wasting time, the girl climbs the castle walls to save Mina, while Fuji remains at the lower part reflecting. Inside the castle, Liu is sitting on his couch, quite relaxed, reading a manhwa to unwind. He grabs a piece of cake and enjoys it thoroughly, but at that moment, the two siblings unexpectedly appear in the room, breaking through the wall. As a good pervert, the hero excitedly wonders about the identity of the intruders, looking at their arrival from a privileged angle. However, the demi-humans present themselves with hostility, determined to achieve their objectives by force. With his dagger drawn, Fuji demands that the Lord release his sister. However, the two fumble, ending up pointing their weapons in the wrong direction at the Lord. Seeing this while eating some pieces of cake, Liu asks who these people are. Realizing his mistake, Fuji now points in the right direction and moves to attack our hero, telling him to give his sister back. At that moment, in a flash, Mina appears to defend her master and fortunately manages to stop the boy's strike. However, when they look at each other, they realize they are members of the same family. Faced with this, Ari is completely shaken to see her sister in such a situation. Fuji, in turn, drops the dagger and cries at Mina's feet, finally having found her. Seeing this, Liu understands that they all belong to the same demi-human family. But the boy still harbors negative feelings towards the hero, saying he will kill him. In this case, Mina intervenes in the conflict, saying there's a misunderstanding between them. Promptly, the girl explains that she is at the protagonist's house because she needs to recover, which shocks her sister. After hearing this, Ari throws herself into Mina's arms, crying and asking about the severity of her injuries. All this reunion atmosphere makes the girl very happy, and to alleviate their worries, she informs them that she is fine. Changing the subject, Mina asks why they are there because she had already told them not to worry and just to take Fuji and the others to the south. Ari explains that it was her brother and the others who insisted that she come to save her. Amidst all that conversation, our hero can only admire the beauty of the fox demi-human. Totally distracted, he believes it to be incredible, and in an attempt to break the ice, Liu asks everyone to sit on the couch to relax a bit. However, Ari asks if the boy hurt her, but Mina responds that he wouldn't even have the ability to do that. In this case, holding her sister's hands, Ari calls her because there are people waiting for her in the south. Thus, the girl looks into the protagonist's eyes one last time and a nonverbal warning. Finally, she shows her resolve to return with her family to the demi-human home. Seeing that you will be left alone, Liu shouts after them, hoping things don't end like this. The demi-humans turn around, Mina is curious, and Ari is fed up with the boy interrupting her family time. Liu explains that the girl is not fully recovered and that they should wait a few more days. Mina, however, comments that there is no need to worry about her condition. But the hero is determined to make her stay and says that the kingdom's nobles are hunting demi-humans even in the south, making their journey impossible. Faced with all this insistence, the girl begins to remember everything Liu did for her and all their good moments together. Therefore, after reflecting a bit, she leaves the decision to her sister. Fortunately, at that moment, a loud noise distracts everyone from the main discussion. The noise was Fuji's stomach growling as he is starving after so long without food. In this case, the hero has an idea on how to resolve Mina's stay. Doing what he does best, Liu prepares a dish of rice with tomatoes and eggs for everyone, letting them help themselves as much as they want. Faced with this, the three demi-humans are completely mesmerized by the food, but Ari still resists the temptation, remaining suspicious. However, with just a small bite, all her preconceptions change dramatically. At that moment, all the girl's worries disappear, and she feels as if she is running in her most primitive form through a joyful tomato field. The flavor of the food completely envelops her emotionally and spiritually, making her unable to stop praising it. Regaining her consciousness, Ari silently praises Liu, as she never believed a human could make such delicious food. In contrast, two of the less mannered demi-humans have their heads in the bowls, devouring all the food. In that degrading situation, one of them ironically comments that it looks like the rice is finished. On the castle veranda, Mina is lost in thought as she looks at the moon. At that moment, the hero appears, happy to find her there, and says he was looking for her. Liu asks if she isn't afraid he might poison her family, but Mina knows that the boy wouldn't even have the courage to do something like that. The protagonist awkwardly agrees, creating a pleasant atmosphere. Changing the subject, he asks if the girl is really going to the south, and she agrees because she believes there is no other choice. It's said that the Winter Queen will arrive soon, so they will no longer have food and will struggle to survive. However, Liu states that the south is very far away, having to pass through many cities. He then asks the girl if she knows what the situation is like there. In this context, the hero asks if the girl wants to stay in the city of Paksai Yang, which surprises her. Mina then asks what they will eat because they cannot depend on the land's lord forever. In this case, the protagonist explains that the girl's friends can work for him and thus earn their own food. This raises a doubt about whether living with humans would be possible, and Leah replies that demi-humans have special talents useful for society. However, the biggest doubt was why the hero was helping them so much. In this case, Leah reveals that he really does not want to be away from Mina because he already likes her a lot. He knows that demi-humans do not trust humans and that the girl is afraid of being deceived, but they have been together for a long time. Therefore, the protagonist politely asks his companion to stay in his land with him. With a quick exchange of glances, Mina turns away, embarrassed, and leaves, making Leah think, disappointed that he still hasn't convinced her. Inside the castle accommodations, Mina's sister praises the clothes they are wearing, describing them as very comfortable, even better than the clothes of the nobles. In response, the girl praises her sister's luck, noting that these were the smallest clothes available in the entire city. Upon hearing this remark, Ari feels offended, thinking she's being mocked for the small size of her lemons. In retaliation, she goes after her sister's melons to attack. Meanwhile, as the girls make suspicious sounds in another room, the protagonist simply enjoys the melody from his bed in his chamber. However, he remembers that the girls will leave the next day, and in their beds, Mina calls her sister for a more serious conversation. A bit disappointed, she asks if they really have to go south, and Ari gets irritated by this question, asking if there's a problem. The girl then places her arms on her sister's shoulders, questioning if she doesn't want to go and asking why she likes that human so much. Mina, however, tries to deflect by saying she's just scared because they still don't know much about the South, especially regarding its physical and food security. In this case, Ari asks if these concerns were raised by the city lord, and Mina obviously says no, even though it wouldn't be absurd. With that, she gets up while saying that the demi-humans still don't understand much about the South and don't know what dangers await them. However, the girl says that if they decide to stay, even if they face problems in the future, they will still be able to handle them if they act with perseverance. This makes Ari consider her sister's proposal and think a little more about it. Later in the castle, noises are heard in the corridors as the small demi-humans are impressed with their relative's fancy clothes. Completely surprised, they associate the girl with a real princess, who indeed looks stunning in the palace of her attire. In this case, the little ones ask why the girls have new clothes and they don't, and Ari responds ignorantly, saying there are only dresses available. In a corner of a castle corridor, the hero stands motionless like a zombie, since today is the dreaded day of the demi-human's departure. With that, after drying his tears in his mind, he calls everyone outside, saying he will guide them as far as possible. However, before he can proceed with the farewell, his name is called by the group of demi-humans who have now changed their minds. Thus, Ari, in her arrogant way, points her finger at the hero and asks what jobs he has available to offer them. Little by little, the protagonist's color begins to return, and as he understands what is happening, his eyes shine with excitement. To clarify any remaining doubts, he asks if the demi-humans have decided to stay, to which Mina replies it's just a temporary collective agreement, because if they discover that Liu Feng is plotting something bad against them, they will definitely end his race. In this case, the hero doesn't worry about the threat because he knows he doesn't intend to harm them, now feeling happier than ever. The boy's happiness was so great that it even began to disturb the girl's sleep due to the sounds he made around the castle during the night. This situation was enough for Ari to regret her decision, but the protagonist was too happy to have any sense. On his next night in the castle, the hero couldn't stop thinking that his life was amazing as he watched two beautiful girls playing in front of him. While eating, the protagonist couldn't take his attention away from the beast girls, who were acting quite interestingly. On the other hand, Nicole simply admired Liva's beauty because he is her platonic love, which makes her even distort what she's seen to embellish the boy. At that moment, however, the protagonist looks at his watch and realizes it's time to sleep. With that, he states that he's sleepy, and Nicole asks what's wrong with her master, since he always goes to bed at midnight. In this case, he stretches, saying he might have just worked too much, but he's only pretending to be sleepy. Thus, he gets up, reiterating that he needs to sleep a bit to recover, and with a serious look, he warns that anything that happened should wait until the next day. Given this, Nicole understands and smiles, saying she will inform the others not to disturb the master's sleep. However, Mina notices the boy's strange behavior and suspects something is going on. With that, he closes his room door and says it's time to return to his world to buy a few things. He mentions that he needs more clothes for his soldier, and as he extends his hand, he begins to generate a blue energy circle. The explanation is that this is a time-traveling power, allowing him to travel once a day, which enhances his body and powers as a result. His power is so strong that it can even see the future and potential risks. However, the protagonist struggles to control how the travel occurs. Thus, he flips upside down and starts falling, eventually arriving in his original world's room, hitting his head on the corner of the bed. After suffering a bit, he comments disappointedly that he has traveled so many times but still can't get used to it. Unfortunately, there's no one in this place to make fun of him, unlike in the fantasy world where he would be heavily teased. At this moment, while walking through his room, the hero ends up tripping over one of his comic books and soon falls face first on the floor amid the books. With that, he realizes that without a Nicole to help him, his room becomes extremely messy. Anyway, the boy goes to his computer because he has something important to do first, and that something is to teach his thief friends a lesson. Thus, while chatting online, he is determined to create a glorious victory scene with 500 metal bows and 500 longbows. In this case, Liu's colleague asks if he's sure, and he confirms because they want to make a war movie in another world, and money is no issue. The recipient understands the request and says they will produce it with the company and send it to the boy as soon as possible since it's an important production. This way, Li Feng manages to deceive people in the real world to obtain military equipment for his soldiers, boasting of his extreme competence. However, before leaving, he almost forgot that he also came there to buy groceries at the supermarket. While shopping, the hero has a list of everything he needs, having already grabbed soap and paper in large quantities. With that, from the back of the market, two women are impressed by the amount of supplies the boy is buying, associating him with the CEO of a large company. This is because, besides the main cart, two other employees were following behind, carrying more supplies in full carts. To exemplify, more than 9 toothbrushes were purchased, along with dozens of boxes of shampoo and many napkins. This resulted in a massive pile of products that the unlucky cashier would have to spend a lot of time scanning. However, upon looking closer, the girl realizes the customer is Mr. Liu, already known to them at the store. In this case, the cashier looks around, and after noticing that no one is watching, she comments on the hero's time-traveling romance. She says she has read every posted chapter and asks why the protagonist stopped writing for months, so Liu decides to explain the reason, exciting the girl. With that, Liu becomes a bit embarrassed and merely comments that he has been somewhat busy with other things recently. Given this, the cashier explains that she spoke with the boy's neighbor, who reported that the hero hadn't left his room for a long time. Thus, she concluded that he was stuck working to prepare for a grand return, which Liu decided not to deny to avoid disappointment. However, in his mind, our hero understands that given his recognition at the supermarket, the best choice now is to change the place where he shops. Back in the fantasy world, Mina stops in front of the protagonist's room, feeling that he might not be feeling well. Thus, she decides to open the door to check on the Lord's condition, but realizes the door is locked. Back at his house on planet Earth, all the boxes are placed on the bed, and the hero activates the interior space. As an explanation, this is a vacuum that only the boy can see and use, appearing between the other world and Earth. This is an unlimited space for the fixed state independent of time and space. Moreover, things placed inside remain the same when removed. Along with this, Li Feng have the power of the fingers, which appeared after you receive an electric shock. Currently, this electricity can be used to store and move things. The boy can control it freely, and it is also invisible to others, making it extremely helpful in the process of transferring supplies to the portal. After a certain period of work, the hero finally manages to complete the task, placing all the boxes inside the vacuum space. He feels happy to have finished, but he notices something on his table, which turns out to be a fast food burger bag. Given this, he looks at it with appreciation, thinking he will take the snacks with him in the hope that the hungry girls will like them. Back in the fantasy world, strangely, everything is very quiet, and at this moment, Mina can't even feel the Lord's breath. With that, she thinks something strange must be happening, and when she touches the door, she starts to believe the boy isn't there. In this case, she prepares her feet to make her entrance in a simpler way. However, at that exact moment, the protagonist materializes inside his room using his powers. Happy to be back, he realizes that choosing his room as the time travel location was a wise choice due to the calmness of the place. This calmness is quickly interrupted by the Beast Girl, who kicks the door, breaking the locks of the hero's room. After kicking the door, a thick dust rises through the room, making her cough. However, she remains alert to everything happening around her. Still, when she looks around the room's corners, she can't see where the castle's lord is. That's because she was standing on top of the hero's bed, which had been toppled over by the impact of the door being broken down. In this case, the girl gets scared by the situation and quickly moves away from Liu, who is suffering in pain on the floor. Anyway, she starts eating the snacks the hero brought from the other world and explains that she knocked on the door, but not getting any response, decided to enter hastily. Given this, Liu understands that his door was broken, and so he asks why the demi-human is so worried about him. This question catches the girl off guard, and somewhat embarrassed, she denies the inquiry, saying she only came to thank him for the work offered. However, pointing to the broken door, Liu comments that the way demi-humans thank people is quite peculiar. In this case, he smiles and asks how the real gratitude will be given. He wonders if, as an apology, the girl would marry him, which makes her spit out the piece of snack she was eating. Then, realizing he made a mistake, the protagonist, as he was just joking, grabs some water, which ends up spilling on Mina. With that, both become quite embarrassed, especially the girl, whose clothes got wet. However, being a tremendous pervert, the hero panics even more, quickly going to fetch the napkins, but at the moment of grabbing them, another accident happens. The two end up tripping over each other, and Mina's spheres touch Liu's face for a second, causing his nose to start bleeding uncontrollably. He begins to fall due to his lowered blood pressure, so to stay upright, he grabs the girl's tail tightly, making her very embarrassed. In this context, Liu realizes he made another mistake, and for a second, silence fills the room. Right after this shameless act by the Lord, Mina is filled with rage and slaps his face with her tail. However, before leaving, she stops and turns around, warning that what happened between them regarding her tail must not be told to anyone. Thus, Liu places his hand on the spot where he was hit, remembering that in the animal world it said that the tail is the most sensitive place for cats. In such a case, Mina leaves irritated but also embarrassed, and Liu just watches from afar, happily wondering if what just happened was a flirtation. In a location somewhat close to the main city, amidst the mountains, hooded men walk with their horses, believing this to be the place they were looking for. As they enter the main city area, the men pass by workers who manage to earn food, and the wind makes it possible to see a weapon in their holster. At nightfall, one of the workers is happy because he received 1 kilogram of grains again, which is more than enough, and another says it's obvious since the Lord has never given them less. However, they notice the arrival of some strangers on horseback and realize it's quite late to be lingering around. Unfortunately, the boys don't have time to leave safely before being confronted by the mysterious warrior. Showing himself to be a villain, the man grabs the worker's sack of grains, who tries to resist since it's the only food he has. As a true evildoer, the warrior decides not to keep the food and instead tears it apart so that no one can have it. With that, he leaves, leaving behind the frustrated worker with his entire day's worth of food scattered on the ground. Determined not to be submissive, the boy starts running after the mercenary who ruined his personal belongings. Since he's dealing with a bandit, the mercenary reacts to this affront with a blow from his dagger, which causes blood to splatter all around, leaving his companion trembling in fear. In a desperate situation like this, the boy tries to scream for help, but he is suddenly kidnapped by another of the men who appears behind him. More blood is shed by the hooded men, and without concern, they leave while mocking the situation, despite not initially intending to cause such a mess. Back in the kingdom, in the red-haired merchant's quarters, he's hosting a feast with plenty of food, drinks, beautiful women, and the hooded men. While one of them gorges on everything being offered, the other acts more calmly, and the event continues without issues. Later, in the area where the crime took place, some villagers lament what happened while remembering that the victims were considerably close to them. Given this, the chief guard in charge of maintaining order asks everyone to stay away and informs them that the Lord is currently investigating. At the crime scene, the hero is indeed present, and upon seeing what happened, he is outraged that someone dared to kill one of his own right under his nose. In this context, he thinks that when he catches those responsible, he will punish them in the worst possible way, flaying them alive while they're awake. The commander, for his part, after conducting the investigation, gives his opinion and says that based on the wounds, he doesn't believe it was the horse-riding thieves. When questioned, he continues explaining that the autumn harvest hasn't begun yet, and everyone knows that the sea of Haksai-yang is quite poor. Thus, there would be no reason for them to come now, and secondly, there were differences in the cuts on the two citizens, indicating they were killed by a fine weapon. This leads him to believe that the horse-riding thieves couldn't afford such good weapons, and thirdly, he questions why they didn't take the food. This confuses the protagonist even more, making him also wonder why the food wasn't taken. The next day, inside the castle, the hero believes that everything is very strange because the villains killed his people without taking anything from them. In this case, the protagonist interrupts the beast girl during her meal, catching her attention for a moment. When she responds to the call, the hero states that he needs her to do something for him. However, he says that this is a dangerous mission, therefore, if she wants to refuse, there will be no repercussions. Mina, however, is a very brave demi-human as she doesn't care about the mission's danger, only asking what needs to be done. Understanding that his request will be fulfilled, Leo rises from his throne and asks the girl to go to a certain place at night to gather information. He obviously asks her to ensure she doesn't get into danger, and yawning, the girl acknowledges the request. Since her help will only be needed at night, she quickly runs off to take a nap before working. However, at that moment, the protagonist calls her once more, saying he has prepared a night outfit for her to wear during a mission. Something that, due to the hero's perverted nature, will obviously make the girl appear more provocative. Initially, she doesn't quite understand, however, by nightfall, Mina ends up really dressed in the outfit made by the city's lord. Then, as he turns around, he is met with the result of the project he thought so much about, and while Mina complains about the tight fit, Liu's nose bleeds because she looks amazing. Despite having some reservations about the outfit, in the end, the girl ends up liking it, and the protagonist also hands her a knife for self-defense. Receiving the blade, the girl looks at it for a few seconds, confused, but quickly grabs it and throws it into a corner of the room. With a determined look, she declares that she doesn't need any equipment to defend herself, and a protagonist can only think about the damage done to his shelf. However, because she has some respect for the city's lord, she retrieves the knife from the shelf and, with a smile, decides to take the weapon with her. In this case, the hero doesn't know whether to be happy that the girl accepted or sad about the hole in his shelf. A few moments later, Mina sets out on her nighttime mission, jumping from house to house and managing to enter the red-haired merchant's residence through an open window. As she continues her mission without major problems, the girl silently boasts about her skills. Now that she's there, she finally begins to pay attention to the kind of trouble the residents are planning for the village. Inside the hall, the redhead's conversation quickly incriminates him as he tells the bandits that killing one person here or there isn't a problem. However, he continues to warn them that if things start happening more frequently, Liu Feng might find out and their plan will fail. In this case, one of the criminals asks why there's so much fear, seeing as they can implement the plan ahead of schedule at any time. To explain himself, he says that all they'll need to do is send a few men to chop off the city lord's head. However, he didn't realize he had given Mina a privileged view of the plan and the audacity of the man to want to pick a fight with her lord. Another merchant eagerly agrees with the mercenary's proposal, saying that as long as they kill Liu, the city of Haksai-yang will be theirs. The last one concludes that after killing the lord, they can capture the beautiful demi-human who serves him so they can play with her as much as they want. Just the thought of this excites the two, causing them to indulge in inappropriate and criminal thoughts. Faced with this, Mina becomes extremely enraged at those bastard merchants and prepares to eliminate them all. The redhead, for his part, also agrees with the idea but is aware of the consequences of killing a noble. Then, one of the merchants informs him that they have the Baron's support regardless. It is said that 70% of all their gold is paid to Lord Omar, and now that Liu Feng is in their way, he won't have any chance of surviving. In such a case, the second bandit confirms the merchant's reasoning, asking them not to worry since he is there sent by Baron Omar. Upon hearing this, the girl on the roof ceases her attack preparation because a highly relevant piece of information has just been revealed. Later, back in the Lord's quarters, all the key figures in management are outraged at discovering what led to the boy's murder. Among the most furious is Mew, who shouts about those bastards planning even the assassination of his kin. The commander, for her part, states that the best course of action right now is to kill every one of them to avoid future problems. And Liu simply asks about Baron Omar's involvement in everything that's happening to them. In this case, the commander decides to explain the entire history involving the noble. It is said that in the kingdom of Yinglu, titles are classified into 5 types, ranging from the lowest, which is Baron, to the highest position of absolute king. Among them, in the 4th position of power is Count Puli, a great aristocrat with over 200 extremely strong men at his disposal. Connected to all of this, Baron Omar is the youngest son of Count Puli, which Liu immediately understands. With that, he unrolls a scroll while commenting that it seems this is someone they shouldn't mess with so carelessly. Liu fears that the Baron might use this situation as an excuse to start a war. In this case, Liu feels a bit disappointed and asks if there's nothing they can do to honor the boys' deaths. After thinking for a moment, the hero decides they will wait until an attempt on his life is made. The next day after that meeting, the birds are singing happily, and a new dessert taught by the protagonist himself is served at breakfast. Nicole promptly places a plate of donuts on the table for everyone to enjoy as much as they like. Quickly, the demi-humans devour everything to satisfy their insatiable hunger. Liu, in turn, asks the girls to eat slowly as there are many other dishes to be tasted. Unexpectedly, Nicole interprets this phrase as a compliment directed at her and becomes extremely emotional. Silly in love, she starts to think the day is beautiful, but suddenly a cry of bad news is heard in the hall. Unfortunately, the pleasant atmosphere of the morning is interrupted and everyone turns to pay attention to the news that has arrived. At the end of the corridor, 2 citizens come running toward the city lord to report the recent events. Desperate, the men inform the lord that another person has appeared and another one of his people has been killed. After processing the information, Liu slams his hand on the table and stands up impatiently, considering the situation a blatant disrespect toward him. Ari, on the other hand, doesn't seem to care much and asks why the protagonist doesn't send someone to check first. However, this lack of common sense only makes the hero even more irritated and determined to go there personally. Without wasting time, he really gets up, knowing it's his duty to manage order and control the chaos in his city. Liu quickly heads to the gate and informs everyone that he'll be gone for some time. Among those remaining at the palace, some like Ari don't take the situation too seriously, while others like Nicole are extremely worried, as is her nature. Later, the Lord's group runs through the city, following the commoner who informed them of the incident. However, at this moment, the hero begins to wonder why the boy is running so fast, almost disappearing from his sight. And inevitably, after turning into one of the alleys, the worst-case scenario happens. Liu loses sight of the boy entirely in an instant. The first to realize the trouble they'd gotten into is Mina, who looks back to warn the group of the approaching danger. However, it's already too late, as the spot where everyone was standing suddenly begins to collapse, revealing it to be a trap. Both Mew and Mina manage to land on their feet with ease, unlike the protagonist who falls on his back in an unfavorable position. As the plan succeeds, one of the bandits mocks the hero from above the pit for being so easily deceived. In response, the protagonist shouts, demanding the identity of the hooded men and declaring that even if they are assassins, he will ensure they are killed. However, the bandits don't take this threat seriously, knowing they currently have the upper hand. One of them decides to stop the small talk and suggests they start burying them alive to report the job's completion to their superiors. However, among the captives, there was one variable the assassins hadn't considered. That variable was the demi-human who easily scaled the walls of the pit and managed to strike one of the bandits without him noticing. Seeing this, the other bandit draws his sword to defend himself, but just as he prepares to attack, he is struck in the hand, disarming him. With his weapon fallen to the ground and having been bested, the assassins realize they are no match for the girl. So they quickly whistle for their horses and begin fleeing from the girl, saying their time will come, but not today. Meanwhile, inside the pit, the hero receives help from the commander to climb out and is pleased that the girl intimidated the bandits. New then boasts about the skills of his squad, mocking the strength of the bandits and their audacity in wanting to take down the Lord. However, at this moment, the protagonist notices something is wrong, and upon seeing the end of the trap, he shouts for Minan not to chase the hooded men. This advice, however, isn't heard due to the great distance now separating them. In this case, Liu quickly gets up and warns the commander that the demi-human might end up in danger if they're not there to help. New, however, questions how they'll keep up with her without horses. Being quite resourceful, the protagonist spots an ostrich and decides to use what's available. He mounts the animal, directing it to follow Mina. while asking the commander to gather reinforcements in the meantime. The commander, baffled, wonders where this animal came from and how the Lord managed to tame it. Meanwhile, a native was searching for his large bird, which he had captured recently, while this cauldron was already boiling with spices at hand. Continuing her pursuit, the beast girl leaps from tree to tree, chasing the assassins responsible for the attack on her city. However, as she chases them, she hears her name being called and turning back notices the hero riding an ostrich. Liu shouts for her to stop, stating that it's very likely there's a trap ahead. Ironically, the concern about a trap proves to be real, as the Lord himself, while trying to help, falls into one. The ostrich faints and the hero is thrown off the animal, causing the beast girl to become quite worried. Liu Fei begins to fall in free fall, and considering his situation, he calls for help. With that, Mina quickly jumps from the tree and rescues the protagonist, holding him in her arms, leaving him quite embarrassed. Despite the somewhat embarrassing scene, he was successfully saved, so the demi-human asks if her master is okay, to which Liu responds that he is. But in the middle of that forest, someone interrupts the happy moment the protagonist was having, questioning if he's done having fun. Suddenly, from every bush, an assassin appears, and their leader, now with reinforcements, tells the Lord that you should enjoy it while he can and this is his last chance. The presence of so many assassins just to kill one person was something that definitely frightened our hero. In this case, to try to get out of it, Liu asks why they're trying to kill him, considering they have no personal grudge or conflict. However, the assassins don't care about that and tell the Lord to save those words for when he's dead. This only makes Liu more scared because even as the hero of this story, the bandits didn't back down from his protagonist's speech. Anyway, his persuasion skills weren't that important since the boy had Mina at his disposal. Without wasting time, she attacks several of the bandits, knocking them out one by one, leaving only their leader fully conscious. Seeing this, the leader himself begins to worry and orders all the remaining men to attack the girl together. Mina then pays close attention to the bandits' movements as they approach her, but suddenly something hits her. As one bandit strikes with his sword, apparently hitting the beast girl, he gets excited about his achievement. However, he quickly realizes that he didn't manage to hit her because, suddenly, she simply vanished from his sight. Then, demonstrating her tremendous agility, Mina appears behind several of the bandits, knocking them out one by one. Finally, she tries to land a blow to do the same to their leader, who narrowly dodges the attack. Seeing this, Mina stops running for a moment to praise the boy's luck and warns that next time he won't have the same opportunity. This provocation makes the assassin tremble with anger, so he draws his sword and tries to slash at the girl, telling her to go to hell. Mina, however, easily dodges, as a slow attack like that can't harm a beast girl as agile as she is. However, even though she wasn't hit on the skin, the boy's strike tears a piece of her sleeve, and the bandit begins to brag, believing he's wearing her down. The assassin asks if the girl is surprised, but she can only think that those are the clothes her master gave her. Therefore, she becomes enraged and charges at the man without holding back, striking several vital points on his body, causing him to fall to the ground like the others. From afar, the hero observed the whole fight and therefore praised Mina, saying she truly deserves to be called the Shadow Warrior. The girl becomes a little embarrassed by the praise but remains proud, saying it's only natural since she is the great warrior of the cat tribe. At that moment of carelessness, the assassin gets up with his sword to attack the girl while she boasts about her feats. Liu tries to warn her, but it's already too late to react, so he steps in front of Mina to take the blow and protect her. With that, he falls into the arms of the beast girl, who becomes extremely worried about her master's well-being. However, the situation quickly changes when the boy starts acting dramatically, saying he won't survive despite appearing fine. Without wasting time, the bandit raises his sword to strike again, saying it's the end for both of them. However, at that moment, arrows hit the assassin's body and he falls defeated to the ground. The group of heroes turns around to see what's happening and sees that the support team has finally arrived. This makes them really happy, and the military commander hurriedly dismounts his horse to ask if his master is okay. Liu narrowly maintained his integrity thanks to the leather armor from Earth that he was wearing, as the weapons in this world are still quite archaic. In this case, Liu is happy about the protagonist's well-being but sad that they brought the entire army there for nothing. Additionally, he comments that if anyone dares to try to harm the city lord, obviously, the soldiers came with the intent to kill them all. However, with his mind now calmer, the boy remembers that, in reality, all of this that is happening is nothing more than a mere distraction. Back in the main city, a fire breaks out, starting to spread through all the houses, causing the citizens to panic as they try to extinguish the flames. Among the places in the city, one of the most important was in flames, the warehouse. In this case, Nu is called to gather everyone and bring water there, and while the fire spreads, the hero asks the citizens to wet their clothes as a precaution. However, the city secretary warns that the fire is too intense and asks the master to return. Nevertheless, he continues with his work, ignoring the advice. Quickly, he starts trying to put out the fire with a bucket of water, and suddenly his name is called. Unfortunately, bad news arrives from his aunt, informing him that both Ellie and Nickel are missing. In this case, the worst scenario is considered by the protagonist, who, without wasting time, starts running and since she is his subordinate, Minna doesn't leave him alone. Despite being an agile warrior, the girl is very sensitive to fire, getting startled several times along the way. Meanwhile, in one of the warehouse spaces, the two girls are unconscious, unable to defend themselves. However, among the two, Mikkel suddenly opens her eyes, confronted with the terrible scene before her. Everything is burning. Thus, the girl tries to wake Ari, but initially, she shows no sign of responding to her calls. However, as soon as one of the flames touches her tail, Ari wakes up in a panic due to her sensitivity to fire. Frightened, she wonders what's happening, and Mikkel comments that it seems they were kidnapped and brought there. This makes the Beast Girl furious, hoping she doesn't find the person responsible, because if she does, she'll make them regret ever being born. Anyway, the situation is becoming increasingly dire for casual conversations like these to be possible. Little by little, the warehouse structure begins to give way, and seeing this, Mikkel asks if they're going to die burned there, to which Ari seriously replies, denying it. The girl is still determined to survive, but at that very moment, another vital part of the structure collapses, causing the roof to start falling on their heads. The two close their eyes, expecting the worst, but when they open them, they see Liu Feng